Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fit Life Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqui, and it's February 2025. January was the longest month. Oh my gosh, I don't remember. Probably the longest month since last January. I don't know about anyone else. I always find that January, February, March usually go the slowest for me, and then the last few months of the year go by like in a blink of an eye. So it's always so crazy. So January was a decent month in terms of just we kicked off the Start Strong challenge, and we had my daughter's birthday and stuff like that. Um so aside from getting sick and like dealing with some of those things, like it was totally fine. It was just that the last couple of weeks just seemed to like really tick by really like slowly. So something that was super exciting that happened over the weekend was I actually had my very first meetup with local clients of mine, past and present clients. And it was so much fun. Getting in person and starting to do more like in person things with my business is a goal of mine this year. Whether that's like these meetups with clients that I've worked with, whether that's through coaching and one to one coaching and stuff like that. Um, or even running some like outdoor classes or something is what I'm kind of like, you know, tossing around the idea of and how I would do it. But it's my way of like pushing myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and like breaking that bubble. Um, I don't know if a lot of people really like know this about me, but something that I kind of struggle with is like just a little bit of social anxiety. Like I don't have like a super hardcore diagnosis or anything like that, but stepping out of my comfort zone with people that I am unfamiliar with in person is something that's really, really, really uncomfortable for me. Like, I wouldn't really describe myself as like an extroverted person who thrives on social situations like this. I'm definitely, but I wouldn't describe myself as introverted either. So, like, I'm not somebody who like needs my alone, like I need alone time, but it's usually because of like my mental capacity, the things that I juggle, stuff like that. I'm definitely more sensitive to social situations depending on what it is and who it is. So if I'm in like stressful social situations, that like just like take a lot of out of me in terms of like negative energy and things like that, those like exhaust me. But on the other hand, I can be around a group of people, and if they are people who make me feel comfortable and I'm at peace with them, and it's like a social situation where you feel really good, then I thrive on that, and that gives me kind of like a boost of energy. But overall, I do have to be really careful about like how I spend my capacity, especially because in this time of my life, there's so much I'm already spending on. So, like, I'm a mom, so I have like two little kids under the age of 5. And that in itself is just a lot of energy in terms of like taking care of them, making sure they're fed, making sure they're healthy, like managing their emotions, putting them to bed every night. Like I'm like I'm the kind of go-to parent when it comes to that, where my husband's more of the working parent. um Getting them to their extracurriculars, like all of that stuff, but also because my husband works more than I do, I also take the brunt of like taking care of household things, groceries, making sure that we're scheduling out like social events with family and stuff like that. I'm the one that arranges for visits with grandparents and all of those things. So it takes a lot of time, right? That's a big chunk of my capacity. And then the other side of my capacity is the clients that I have. So the one-to-one clients that I need to like maintain some level of mental capacity and emotional capacity for, so that I can help them in the best way that I can. And then my group coaching program, which I also need to hold some level of capacity with, not to the extent of like a one-to-one coaching client, but still being there and being available for that support as promised, kind of thing. And then work at the hospital as a recreation therapist. Like, that's more space I need to hold in order to present myself in a professional manner there, and maintain a level of professionalism as a healthcare worker, and supporting patients there, and supporting my healthcare team and stuff. So when it comes to these extra things that are more uncomfortable for me because they're situations I've never been in before, feels like it takes a lot for me to like get myself to that place. And this something like this was requested by a previous client that I had back in like 2023. And in 2023, I loved the idea, but I was in the midst of like having small toddler, and my daughter wasn't even like a year. Like we were in that first year with her and not sleeping and like things like that. And I just remember being like, I love the idea, but my anxiety level is like way up here to think about making those arrangements and putting myself in that situation and figuring out who's going to take care of my kids while I'm there and like all of these things. But I'm just like in a better place emotionally and mentally in terms of like the amount of capacity I have to put towards these like kind of more extra things. And I feel like so many moms especially can relate to this because like we go through these phases where like we are like, yeah, we're on top of our game. We got the energy, we got the social capacity, and we might like book ourselves out with social events because we're feeling social. And then there comes a point where you're like, oh my gosh, like I am so socialed out. And now I'm just going to hole up and disappear for a couple of weeks while I like regroup myself and just chill and whatever. And then I might go through like another like social boost after that. So that's where I'm at. But, anyways, this meetup was so lovely. Um, no, 5 of the girls that I am either coaching or have coached came out, and we met up at a local spot in Hamilton where. So if you know Hamilton, Ontario at all, it is based around like a bay, right? And there's an areas of the bay that you can kind of go, and there's like hiking paths and things like that. So we met up at one part of the bay, and then we walked to another part of the bay, mostly because I really like promote outdoor activity and walking and things like that. And even though we're in the midst of winter, I'm like, you know what? It would be a good opportunity to like do something together but still be moving. And being outside in the wintertime is much more enjoyable when you have the social connections with each other. So had that piece in there. And then we met up at a coffee, or like then we walked over to the coffee shop, and we were able to like have a cozy drink and connect and chat. We chatted for like at least a couple of hours. Um, and just connect like women to women, and it was so nice. It was so intimate and chill and just like no pressure kind of situation where we were all able to just kind of engage and learn more about each other. And what I really loved about it was that I learned more about my clients in terms of just like more casual things that otherwise might not be brought up in like a coaching conversation when I'm actually their coach, you know? So it was nice to like be at a more of a personal level with them, and they learned more about me and like some of like my past and experiences, and I got to learn more about them and their past experiences and all the cool things that they've been able to do and experiences with kids and like all of those other things. And then also watching them connect with each other and finding like the same kind of interests or similar experiences and things like that, which was really, really nice. And I feel like from a client's perspective, it's just nice to be able to connect with other women who are kind of like minded in that sense. Like they're all looking for the same kind of thing, right? They're all looking to become healthier versions of themselves and to find, um, things that resonate with them from a health perspective and a mental and a well-being perspective and stuff like that. So like watching this happen and unfold in front of me was really, really awesome. And it took me a couple days to like put this into words because afterwards I just felt good about it, and I was like, I don't know how to express why this feels so good, but it's that just sense of community, right? And even though I feel like I know my clients really, really well on a personal level because we talk every week, right? If not more than that. I talk to my clients more than I talk to some family members and some friends because that's part of my job with them is this relationship. And you get to know each other very, very well. But it's another level when you actually meet them in person, you know? Like there's always that kind of like, and I've had clients in the past that I have ended up meeting in person for one reason or another. And they would say to me, they're like, I can't believe I've never met you because I feel like I know you so well. Like we're friends and we've never met in person. This is the first time. And I think that's something that's special and something that, as much as I have like a love hate relationship with social media, this is one of the pieces that I really do love about it because it's catered to you in a way that bring connects you with other people that are like you and that you do resonate with on some level. So this is where I'm really thankful for how all of this has panned out in terms of my business and the women that I've been able to meet and how we've been able to connect and why you know some clients stay on with me longer than others, and it's because we connect more on a personal level and on we have these deeper connections, and part of like life fulfillment is having deep connections with other people and um knowing that you have people in your corner, right? So it was really nice, it was awesome. So yeah, that happened this past week. So this week, for this episode, I wanted to tell a story about my personal experiences with body image and the moment that I really, it was like a big light bulb moment for me when I really learned how much how much of a difference it makes in terms of your relationship with yourself and how you think about yourself, um, and how that relates to the outcomes you're looking for. Um, I do think like there's the inner we talk about the inner work, right? And when we talk about the inner work, we're talking about, you know, different thought patterns we have, different beliefs we have. These are all changeable things. So as much as you can have certain beliefs or certain perspectives, that's all based on your personal experiences from one way or another, right? But just because we have these beliefs and just because we have these stories we tell ourselves doesn't mean that they can't be changed. And that's something I've come to really, really understand through the inner work process that I've done, through therapy, and like rewiring my brain and the way that I think about things. But there's definitely things that like you need to hear over and over and over again in order for it to really like set in and make that change. But then there's also other things that happen that are just going to kind of smack you in the face. And this is what was one of those situations for me that it did. It smacked me in the face. And I think a lot of people can learn from it for sure. Maybe it'll be a smack in the face for you too in the best way possible. um so basically like a lot of my health journey, like a lot of women my age who grew up in the 90s and the 2000s, started with chasing skinny, right? Started with weight loss, started with wanting to be as thin as possible. Um and doing whatever it took to be as thin as you could. Um, I did all the things. I did juice cleanses. I remember, shit, what's her face? One of the Jersey Shore girls, um, had this some sort of like detox. I remember trying that. I did beach body. I did all the workout programs, like anything that I could do to be skinny. But the thing was I never felt good enough. It didn't matter what kind of progress that I made. I either felt like I wasn't making progress at all, even if I kind of was, slash I never measured it properly, if that makes sense. I was always just kind of going by my weight, which we all know is not the only sign of progress. Um, and then, God, enter weightlifting and then, you know, focusing on the things that I can do versus what was on the scale. And I did end up being in a better place with myself in terms of body image, when it came to that. Like that was this is one of the reasons why I really love strength training, not just for like all of the physiological benefits that you're going to get from it, but it's something that helped me to reframe my mind and the way that and my relationship with my body. Um, because now I wasn't just focusing on the scale, I was focusing on the progress I was making in the gym in terms of like how much I was lifting and kind of proving to myself over and over and over again that these are things that I can do that are super badass and say a lot more about me and what my abilities are than the number on the scale. Um, so that's why a big reason why I fell in love with strength training and got into that world. I got engaged, and I had my wedding in March of 2019, and leading up to that, I worked my ass off because I wanted to look my best on my wedding, and I think that's normal. Like, it's one of the biggest days of your life, and you're going to be in front of like a whole bunch of people and have pictures for the rest of your life and all of these things. So by nature, I think it's totally normal to want to look your best on your wedding day and feel your best on your wedding day. Um, the year leading up to my wedding, I competed in 2 powerlifting programs, and then I did a cut for the last few months before leading up to my wedding. Um, I ended up getting to probably the smallest size that I had been in a really, really long time. Um, and I was feeling really good leading up to my wedding but for the most part. But there was always that little voice in the back of my head, that little voice that was always criticizing, that was always telling me that I could be better, that this wasn't good enough, or what have you. There was something that was always something in the back of my head that wasn't 100% happy. And when I got my wedding pictures back, of course, I was happy with some of the pictures, but there were other pictures that little voice of self-criticism would come out and totally like sabotage how I felt about myself in these wedding photos, okay? Now keep in mind, I had built a lot of muscle. I had lost a lot of fat. My body composition was really, really good. And of course, I feel like it doesn't matter who you are or how lean you are or anything like that. There's always going to be unflattering pictures. And logically, I could think that, but there was just this little voice in the back of my head that was like, you didn't do enough, Jacqui. Enter 2020, when I had my first kid in the beginning of the pandemic, and looking at my postpartum body and being like, all right, well, we're here and we are squishy and we are like 50 pounds heavier than we're used to being. And we have some body composition goals because, I was done breastfeeding and all of these and I honestly had nothing else to do because we were in lockdown half the time. So I was ready to work out again. And I took like progress photos to kind of mark the beginning of like what I looked like, but at the same time also finding myself really trying to maintain a positive outlook on my body because I felt so self-conscious with how big I was, with how like inflamed and um like I just looked bigger than I usually am. And that takes work for sure to get to a place where that makes you uncomfortable. It takes work to like maintain a positive outlook and to look at your body in the mirror and be like, okay, like this is okay. And to like come to terms with it, right? Like I had created an entire life. I had created a little baby. I had an emergency C-section and gave birth, and my body needed time to recover. And that's what postpartum is. But there is a sense of having some struggles with what your body looks like afterwards. Like it was just so foreign to me. Um so then I remember, you know, a little bit after having my son and grappling with these feelings about my body, especially coming from like a more athletic background and like having these expectations or like feeling like there's this pressure that because you're an athlete you're going to like snap back, quote unquote, more quickly postpartum than most women would. And that was not the case for me in either of my pregnancies and either of my postpartum experiences. um but this was my first one, right? So I didn't know what to expect, and these were the feelings that I was dealing with. Enter in like a period of time where I came across my wedding photos again. And I remember looking at them, and there was like, a couple of particular pictures that were the ones that I wasn't happy with prior to being pregnant and experiencing a postpartum body. And I remember looking at them and being like, why did I think there was something so wrong with this? And all of a sudden I felt really sad because I realized that I spent so much time criticizing myself and never being happy with myself, never truly being happy with where I was at, and always feeling like I was never enough. Regardless of how much work that I put in, regardless of what I could do, regardless of what I could look like, there was always this thing inside of me that always felt like I was never enough. And that moment was really powerful in the sense that I was like, how much time have I wasted thinking that I was not good enough? And also realizing that no matter what size I was going to get to, it was never going to be good enough because I wasn't okay with like who I was, like not that I wasn't okay with who I was, but like I wasn't going to give myself that kind of value to 100% feel like I was in a place where I could stay, or that I was in a place that was 100% enough of what I was looking for. And it was so powerful like, and again, like I was just incredibly sad because I know I'm not the only one that thinks like this. And I know I'm not the only one that grapples with these kind of conflicting feelings about loving myself, but also feeling like I'm enough at the same time, but also knowing that it's okay to want to improve where it's applicable and where necessary. And you can have all of those things at the same time. So, but again, going back to the fact that, like, knowing that even if I did feel good in my body, there was always going to be that little voice in my head that told me that I needed to do better and that where I was wasn't enough because of X, Y, and Z. That was a huge moment. That was a huge moment for me. And I feel like so many women think in these terms too. And that's why I talk a lot about how we can use the scale as a unit of measurement in terms of progress, but we don't want to be emotionally attached to the scale and what those numbers are, because we don't want our value attached to that number. Our value is not attached to that number, like whatsoever. And that number is meant to fluctuate, and it's going to change over the seasons of your life because of various factors. Like so many different factors applied to your weight. And I also think that because I have come a long way since that moment in terms of being okay with myself and my body, that even though the last like year I've been trying to, even though like, yeah, the last year around this time I started a cut. No, not yet. It hasn't been a year. But I've been hanging around, like I've talked about, I like being at 125, but my body has been hanging around closer to like 130-ish for the most part. And it hasn't bothered me like at all because I look in the mirror and I like what I see. I'm okay with it. Um, my clothes fit comfortably. I have lots of energy. I'm running around with my kids. And maybe I just have more distractions now that take me away from really perseverating on my body image too. But, and maybe there's more indication that my body is good where it's at. Maybe I just genuinely don't care as much anymore. I'm not really sure. But I know that looking back, there would have been a time where I would have been incredibly self-critical because I haven't lost these last 5 pounds. And even like 10 pounds, like, because there was a time where like 120 would have been my goal, even though like I have an easier time maintaining 125, so like, and again, like those numbers don't matter. This is just applicable to my body, because I'm like a miniature person. um so so don't take those numbers as a grain, like take those numbers with a grain of salt. They're not applicable to you, they're just applicable to me. But that being said, Like it's just giving more context to the story. Like that's how I feel. Like I've tried a few cuts, over the past, year or so, and I make progress towards that 125, but then when I start maintaining, I keep creeping back up to 130. And maybe this is just where I sit now, but either way, it doesn't matter to me as much as it did 10 years ago. Um, and I think a big reason is that through the last 5 years, I've realized that it's such a waste of my time to continue to be self critical about myself over the weight on the scale. And if I feel good, if I like what I see in the mirror, if I'm feeling good in my clothes, if I am performing well as a mom and at work and I'm sleeping well and I'm happy, it just doesn't matter, you know? So I just wanted to come on here and share that because I think that you have to find a way to find that value in you so that when you get to a place in your health and fitness journey where you keep chasing that last 5 pounds and it feels like it's impossible or it feels like it's out of your reach, you really should evaluate whether you actually need to lose those last 5 or 10 pounds. Is it actually worthwhile? Are you only chasing a number because it is correlated to a time in your life where, I don't know, you feel like you felt like you were more beautiful or you felt like you were more worthy or whatever the case may be? But it's a good place, it's a good indication of like really exploring how where you're at in your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your body. And we have to remember that there are these pieces inside of us that might not feel like we're worthy enough until we hit a certain number. And that is all part of diet culture that we've been fed since we were teenagers. So it's unpacking that and kind of rediscovering what health means to you and understanding that you can love your body at any given time. Even if you know that you could be healthier or that you would thrive more with a better body composition makeup, you can still love your body for where it's at. And you can still know that you are still worthy and you can still know that you still have value and you are so much more interesting than the clothes that you wear or the number on the scale. Nobody's going to remember those things about you, right? People are going to remember who you were and what you did and how you made them feel and how you made them laugh and how you brought them an amazing gift when they were sick or whatever the case may be. That's what people are going to remember about you. They're not going to remember your body composition. They're not going to remember that you had rolls hanging over your jeans. Like these are such like superficial things about physique and about health and about the human body that are generally pretty normal even in healthy people, and just things that like we really zero in on for no fucking reason. So anyways, I'm just kind of talking in circles at this point, but that's what I wanted to bring up today because I feel like so many women just resonate with this and understand the power behind um hyperfixating on stupid shit and how it can drive really negative behaviors and desperation and unhealthy relationship with your body and an unhealthy relationship with food. So if you continue to focus on loving yourself and understanding that positively behaving towards your body, feeding it good food, giving it water, moving it, giving it good amounts of sleep, managing stress that affects your body. Those are all going to be things that are not only going to help you with your mental well-being, but ultimately help you towards a better body composition and a healthier body overall. Less inflamed, less tired, less sluggish, all of those things, it's going to make you feel fantastic. And if you feel fantastic, your body feels fantastic. And it's the ultimate way of loving yourself by taking care of it and knowing that you are enough where you're at now. So I think I've worded that pretty good. So I'm going to end this here before I mess it up. I hope this resonates with you. If it did, please leave a 5-star review and let me know what you think. And what your story is and what you're struggling with and what has made you realize that you are so much more than what comes up on the scale. Anyways, I will see everybody next time, and I hope you have a great day.